What happens when a superpower's plans collapse in the heat of a geopolitical showdown?
The moment the United States decided to stage a grand display under the guise of battling drug cartels in Latin America, they inadvertently transformed themselves from hunters into prey. This shocking reversal is not just a tale of military miscalculations, it's a dramatic reminder of how quickly the tide of power can shift. When officials in the Pentagon concocted their strategy, it seemed brilliant in its simplicity. They aimed to present their operation as a noble mission, supposedly bringing order to the chaotic shores of Venezuela. Yet they overlooked a fundamental flaw, underestimating Venezuela as a mere weak link. The reality was starkly different. Caracas reacted with a speed and organization that Washington did not anticipate. While the U.S. forces showcased impressive naval strength, deploying Arleigh Burke-class destroyers and even a nuclear submarine, they underestimated the valor and resolve set against them. Thousands of troops gathered, ready and willing to defend their nation, as the American military brought a formidable array of aerial and sea support. But this spectacle was perceived by Caracas as more than just a show of force, it ignited a crisis.
Washington's approach took a troubling turn when substantial rewards were announced for information leading to the arrest of Venezuela's leadership. The sum was alarmingly high, perceived in Caracas as an outright threat that shattered any unspoken codes of international law. In response, a powerful wave of mobilization surged from the Venezuelan government.
State broadcasts sent out urgent calls to action, painting the conflict not merely as a military exercise, but a battle for national sovereignty. Neighboring communities rallied to the cause, while millions responded to calls for volunteer enlistment.
This fervor escalated emotions and operatic tension. Columns of volunteers surged along Caracas coasts, while calls to defend independence echoed through cities. Discussions of strategic defense plans were set in motion, creating a palpable atmosphere fraught with resistance. Did Washington misjudge the resolve of a nation defending its sovereignty? Indeed, it appears they did. In what was meant to be a simple operation against drug trafficking, the conditions morphed into a complex geopolitical battleground. Each side grappled for the upper hand, but ultimately, it was the underlying spirit of the people that turned the tide of the conflict. As the U.S. forces positioned themselves for a decisive strike, a cacophony of alarms and strategic moves transformed the event. But instead of a seamless military operation, a series of tactical errors began to unfold, and chaos rapidly ensued. And as drones soared overhead, could the hunters truly cope with becoming the hunted? The answer loomed ominously on the horizon.
Imagine a power so immense that it deploys thousands of troops across sea and air, yet stumbles against a force many considered weaker. This isn't just a military mission, it's a spectacle of dominance, or so it was supposed to be. What happens when the hunter becomes the hunted? When arrogance blinds the mightiest nation, and a carefully laid plan spirals into chaos? Previously, a massive American fleet, including surface ships and submarines, amassed near Venezuelan waters. Air and naval support enveloped the forces. They brought in an atomic submarine and landing platforms teeming with soldiers. Thousands of personnel stood ready, signaling a display of overwhelming force, though Caracas saw it as more than a routine anti-drug raid, it was a blunt show of power. But the tension wasn't just military, it was legal and psychological warfare too. Washington took a bold step that raised the stakes dramatically. The U.S. Department of State and security agencies announced a colossal bounty, unprecedented in size, on the head of Venezuela's leader. This public declaration shattered decades of unspoken diplomatic rules. In Caracas, this was nothing less than a declaration of war on sovereignty. The Venezuelan government responded instantly and decisively. Every state-run channel broadcasted calls for total mobilization. The streets buzzed with rallies, and speeches echoed with fierce determination. Official propaganda painted the U.S. operation not as a fight against drugs, but as a blatant assault on national integrity. The message left no room for doubt: the people and armed forces must rise as one to defend their land. The president's voice carried across the nation, urging unity and refusal to bow to foreign interference. Territorial defense units and reserves were activated en masse. Millions of volunteers and the people's militias stood on high alert. This huge number wasn't just military, it symbolized a nation united in readiness to repel any external pressure.
Across Caracas coastline, lines of volunteers marched under banners of patriotism. Calls to protect national independence rippled through cities.
Behind the scenes, defense plans against possible blockades and invasions were meticulously drafted. This rhetoric aimed beyond domestic ears. It was a stern message to the entire region, warning that turning this mission into a tool of foreign coercion would meet fierce resistance. But did Washington anticipate the full scale of this collective response? This miscalculation would prove costly. The forces initially meant to showcase strength found themselves caught in an unexpected tide, the resilience of a nation unwilling to yield. The stage was set not for a quick operation, but for a high-stakes confrontation that redefined power and resistance in the modern era. What happens when a show of force ignites a fire far beyond intentions? The answer would unfold in shadows, signals, and the unyielding spirit of a people ready to defend their homeland against overwhelming odds. In the previous part, rising tensions were palpable as columns of volunteers marched along the shores of Caracas. Calls for national independence echoed throughout the cities, while strategic plans for defense were drafted in headquarters. The rhetoric was not just for local audiences, it signaled to the entire region that attempts to use military intervention as a pressure tool would meet with a robust response. Washington underestimated this resolve, and the cost of that miscalculation quickly became evident. As the operation commenced, several troop carriers and fast boats lined up close to Venezuela's coastline. They were backed by aerial cover and drone reconnaissance, monitoring every movement while naval groups assumed strategic blocking positions. The intended landing on a key island was to showcase the ability to act anywhere, anytime. If successful, this maneuver would have sent a clear geopolitical message, potentially altering the balance of power in the region. However, the plan unraveled in unexpected ways, primarily in the technical and informational realm. Overconfidence in technological advantages blinded American command to the adaptability of their opponent.
Caracas took the mobilization seriously.
Local forces communicated efficiently, defying expectations, while weather and navigational challenges, alongside a tangle of operational logistics, led to significant mismanagement.
What was designed as a smooth series of tactical maneuvers turned into a cascade of minor but critical errors, transforming the operation into a nightmare for officials accustomed to control.
What was unfolding on the air and sea front became less about military showmanship and more a dramatic confrontation where both sides desperately sought to seize the initiative from one another. In this high-stakes game, logistics and morale proved just as crucial as weaponry. Would the carefully laid plans crumble under the weight of reality? As both sides grappled with disarray, one question loomed: could a misjudged show of force lead to an unexpected defeat? Would the American military be caught off guard in their own high-tech playground? As tensions escalated on the maritime and aerial front, the situation evolved from a mere military show of force into a gripping drama. Each side grappled with how to seize the initiative, where logistics and morale became as critical as weaponry itself.
In Caracas, a symphony of patriotic calls echoed, uniting the people.
The United States, meanwhile, inadvertently sowed seeds of distrust within the international community with its information campaigns. What began as a routine anti-drug operation effortlessly morphed into a high-stakes geopolitical battleground where the risks soared far above initial expectations. This tale transcends the narrative of a botched operation. It serves as a stark reminder of how swiftly the rules of engagement can shift. When a nation's sovereignty is at stake, the mobilization of its resources, as well as its capacity to counteract in the information arena, can turn the tables unexpectedly. Plans that appear foolproof in cautious boardrooms quickly collapse in the face of human will, belief, and readiness to act. This time, the superpower learned the hard way: the hunter could easily become the hunted. A crucial factor was overlooked: the people's willingness to defend what they cherish. The USS Gravely, the backbone of the operation, was the first to fall. Designed to be both the eyes and shield for the troops, it boasted radar systems covering hundreds of miles, capable missile systems targeting enemies beyond the horizon, and communications that linked all forces. Then suddenly, everything turned into lifeless metal.
Screens flickered and died, radar went blind.
Weapon control systems froze, and even radios fell silent. The once mighty vessel became a drifting hunk of metal, unable to send a distress call.
The Marines aboard their lightweight inflatable boats were blissfully unaware of the chaos unfolding around them.
Believing they were cloaked under the protective shield of the American fleet, they continued toward Margarita Island. Without warning, the sky filled with ominous dots initially mistaken for seagulls. These were not birds but kamikaze drones, descending in a precise formation rather than randomly. What lay ahead was sheer devastation. Would the unsuspecting Marines be ready for the onslaught? How would they respond when they discovered the true nature of their peril? As boats sank one by one, chaos erupted on the waters. Some suffered direct hits, while others capsized, losing all control. Soldiers, clad in heavy gear, scrambled for life rafts and debris, crying out into silent radios. Suddenly, silhouettes of Venezuelan boats emerged on the horizon. They advanced not as rescuers but as victors. Methodically, the crews retrieved American soldiers from the water. The captured were swiftly disarmed and placed under guard in their vessels, all performed with the calmness of those accustomed to such routines. The elite of the United States Marine Corps had now become drenched and disheartened prisoners. Dozens had been caught. For Washington, this was not just a tactical failure, it was a global reputational crisis. Images of sunken boats and surrendered soldiers spread rapidly across regional social networks, gaining viral traction. The symbolism of the defeat was painfully clear. A superpower, which had sunk trillions into advanced weaponry, had been halted by relatively primitive crafts and basic designs. The illusion of technological superiority shattered with the first serious clash with reality. Later that day, Venezuela's president addressed the nation in a televised broadcast, his tone solemn and proud. "We have shown the world that Venezuela will not allow its sovereignty to be trampled," he declared, speaking to both his citizens and a wider audience across the region. His gratitude towards allies held particular weight. He emphasized the support received in this challenging moment, highlighting that true partners never abandon one another. This statement sparked intense reactions in foreign media, hinting at the underlying mystery of the attack's origins and coordination. How could an operation, seemingly flawless in planning, turn into such a humiliating defeat? Was it simply the result of overconfidence, or were there unseen forces at play that turned the tables? As questions swirled, the implications rippled far beyond the immediate conflict. The captivating landscape of geopolitics had shifted once more, and the balance of power had wavered. With every new reveal, the reality of a changed world became clearer, haunting those who underestimated the depths of their adversaries. In a stunning twist of international dynamics, this story chronicles how a seemingly innocuous campaign against drug cartels bloomed into a confrontation that challenged the very stature of a superpower. It begins with Washington's ambitious plan to showcase military prowess in Latin America, but it quickly spirals into chaos. What happens when the hunter becomes the hunted? As the plan was laid out in Pentagon briefings, the ramifications were profoundly underestimated. U.S. Navy ships, including advanced destroyers, parked off the coast of Venezuela under the guise of launching an anti-drug operation, a move perceived as light intervention. However, the reality was anything but one-sided. Caracas swiftly rallied in unified defense, revealing a depth of organization that took Washington by surprise. Instead of an easy show of force, the operation was met with rampant resistance powered by the mobilization of local volunteers, patriotic fervor stoked by government propaganda. The stakes were palpable. Venezuela's president used every means available to galvanize his citizens, positioning their struggle not just against drug abuse but against an external power threatened to infringe on their sovereignty. Washington mustered a significant military presence. Thousands of troops, along with drones and reconnaissance aircraft, prepared for what was supposed to be a straightforward operation. However, a lack of understanding of ground realities made this effort teetering on the brink of calamity even before the first strike began. While U.S. combatants moved towards the targeted coastline, they were unaware of the impending doom that loomed in the skies. Strikingly, reports began to emerge hinting at a foreign hand. Analysts noted a surprising level of coordination in drone warfare, reminiscent of tactics seen in other global conflicts. The drones didn't just strike indiscriminately, they aimed with precision to render equipment impotent, sparing lives but dismantling critical technology. The atmosphere turned grim as commanders, anticipating swift triumph, now faced an unfolding narrative dominated by chaos and confusion.
The high-tech arsenal of the U.S. military was paralyzed. Systems malfunctions indicated an unexpected vulnerability.
It appeared that Russian electronic warfare measures were in effect, creating significant disruption to U.S. communications and control systems, leaving them in disarray and open to retaliation. And then, from the shadows, a wave of Venezuelan boats emerged. What did they mean for the beleaguered American forces? As alarm bells rang, panic set in. Had the U.S. misjudged its capability to operate with impunity? From a brilliantly executed plan, the mission transformed into a desperate fight for survival, an unexpected shift from invader to defender. Each drone strike that day became more than an attack, it was a deliberate act in a well-orchestrated battle plan, striking at the heart of the notion of Western military supremacy. The stakes were raised, and as ships sank and troops fought for their lives, the harrowing reality settled into technology and might are no match for resolve and ingenuity in warfare. What if this confrontation was just the beginning? As the final moments unfolded on the chaotic seas of the Caribbean, shadows of Venezuelan vessels loomed closer than ever, forcing a profound reckoning. Would Washington salvage its dignity and retreat, or would this mark the dawn of a new era of warfare? In a world where power dynamics can shift in an instant, a seemingly simple operation morphs into a complex geopolitical drama. The United States, aiming to combat drug cartels in Venezuela, underestimates the resolve and capabilities of its opponent. As tensions escalate, unexpected realities unfold, revealing that the line between predator and prey is dangerously thin. Evidence of the unfolding situation began to emerge. Journalists capturing the scenes of American prisoners being escorted reported hearing distinct Russian voices among their Venezuelan captors. This sparked theories not just about the presence of military advisors but also the possible involvement of private military contractors. Ukrainian analysts emphasized that this bore the hallmark of Russian operational tactics, executed by highly trained professionals seasoned by years of warfare. According to their insights, the operation was carried out by a group known as Rubicon, an elite unit formed in 2024 under Defense Minister Andrei Belousov's directive. This squad gained rapid notoriety on the Ukrainian front, successfully eliminating over 5,000 targets. Specializing in precision warfare, Rubicon deploys tactics involving electronic warfare to blind and confuse the enemy, followed by pinpoint strikes from swarms of drones that operate with surgical precision. Each operator is trained like a sniper, tasked with neutralizing critical targets, machines, teams, or control systems, with no room for error or random shots. Analysts noted the cold, emotionless efficiency of these actions during the Caribbean mission, suggesting that while Venezuela provided the territory and political cover, the execution had a clear Russian signature. Meanwhile, Caracas hastily reassured the international community that the captured American Marines were safe and well cared for, receiving food and medical assistance. However, they set forth a condition for their release, an official apology from Washington, which turned the White House into a scene of chaos. For the first time in decades, elite U.S. troops found themselves prisoners of a nation typically viewed as secondary. It became clear that this scandal would not simply dissipate. How did a straightforward mission spiral into a complex international incident that left a superpower exposed and vulnerable? As the pieces of this high-stakes puzzle fell into place, everyone was left wondering, can the mighty American military still assert its dominance in situations where the local forces unite against it? The shadows of uncertainty grew longer. Previously, we saw how elite American Marines ended up captured by a nation many in Washington had long dismissed as insignificant. This event was no minor embarrassment. It shattered decades of assumed military dominance and forced an unprecedented public apology from the United States government. The haunting images flooded global screens, soaked, disarmed Marines under the watchful eyes of Venezuelan forces. Pride swallowed, the American side claimed their mission was solely about fighting drug cartels, nothing against Venezuela's sovereignty. But in Caracas, that excuse sparked barely concealed ridicule. 6 lightly armed landing crafts, protected by a single destroyer and drones, supposedly confronting powerful drug cartels? Even a child would see the absurdity. President Nicolas Maduro seized the moment with calculated grace. Since they acknowledged their mistake and apologized, "We are ready to return the soldiers," he declared. Yet his words carried a warning for the world: Venezuela would no longer allow its shores to be a playground for foreign powers. This chapter closed with a bitter price paid by the United States, not just in lost men and equipment, but in shattered reputation. Maduro emerged as a national hero, proving that even a smaller nation could stand firm against a global superpower, especially when backed by reliable allies. The lesson is clear and stark.
The era when American Marines could land anywhere on the planet without consequence has ended.
The world has shifted. Even the most formidable army can be humbled by those it once overlooked.
How far has the balance of power really changed? And what does this mean for future conflicts where technology, willpower, and sovereignty collide?
As the tense situation unfolded, the small inflatable boat sped toward the shores of Margarita Island, oblivious to the imminent danger. The Marines felt secure, believing they were shielded by the formidable American fleet. Suddenly, the sky filled with what they first mistook for seagulls. To their horror, these were kamikaze drones, attacking with precision rather than chaos. The initial wave of drones targeted the left side, followed swiftly by those on the right. Others swooped down from above, and some skimmed just above the water's surface in a well-formed cluster.
This was a complete surprise for the Marines.
Their lightweight vessels lacked armor and anti-aircraft defenses. Firing rifles and carbines at agile drones was like using a slingshot against a fighter jet. The most frightening aspect of the assault wasn't just the numbers, it was the incredible accuracy.
Unlike amateur insurgents, the operators struck with military precision.
The goal was not just random destruction but to disable the vessels. The first drone slammed into the engine of one boat, rendering it motionless and turning it into an easy target. The second penetrated the hull of another craft, causing water to flood in, leaving only bubbles where it had once floated. A third drone unleashed its charge directly, triggering an explosion that showered the area.
As fragments rained down, Marines leaped overboard to escape.
In the open sea, weighed down by their gear, survival seemed impossible. Desperate distress calls crackled over the radio, but there was only silence in response.
The USS Gravely remained unresponsive, like a wounded beast. Command scrambled to deploy rescue helicopters, but they too encountered unexpected challenges. As they approached the area of intervention, they began to lose control.
Instruments displayed erratic readings, navigation systems jumped restlessly from north to south.
Engines sputtered, and pilots fought valiantly to return their helicopters to base, risking their crews' lives. Even the MQ-9 Reaper, once considered resilient against interference, abruptly lost communication. Its final camera feed displayed chaotic views of swirling sea and sky. These reports would later be classified as the effects of aggressive electronic warfare. However, for those floundering among the debris, such technical jargon offered no solace. The boat sank one by one, leaving only chaos behind. What had started as a calculated display of power had devolved into a grim reality, illuminating the fragile line between dominance and vulnerability. Would the mightiest military force face its darkest hour in this struggle for supremacy?
The previous part of the story revealed a shocking development during the mission toward Margarita Island. Confidently advancing, the troops were unaware of the imminent danger that loomed above them. Drones surged through the sky, initially mistaken for seagulls, but these were not harmless birds, they were kamikaze drones organizing in a tactical swarm.
As the drones descended, the Marines faced sheer chaos.
The first wave attacked from the left, swiftly followed by coordinated strikes from the right and above, where others swooped in with precision. These lightweight boats had no armor, no anti-air defense, only rifles and carbines, utterly ineffective against such agile foes. This assault wasn't random, every strike was executed like an orchestrated military operation, targeting vessels to cripple them rather than to kill indiscriminately. One drone slammed into a boat's motor, halting it and rendering it useless. Another bored a giant hole into the side of a different vessel, drowning it under rushing water. A third drone initiated an explosion, hurling a violent spray and sending troops scrambling into the sea, weighed down by their gear, their chances of survival rapidly dwindling. Panic erupted over the radio, desperate cries for assistance were met with silence. The flagship, USS Gravely, had become eerily quiet, like a ship shot down. Command scrambled to send rescue helicopters, but as they approached the target zone, they too experienced inexplicable failures. Instruments displayed conflicting readings, engines sputtered, and navigation systems malfunctioned. Confusion ruled the air. Pilots, risking their lives in an unclear crisis, barely managed to turn their flights back. Even the MQ-9 Reaper, renowned for its resilience, lost contact mid-mission, the final transmission revealing only chaotic imagery of twisting sea and sky. Official reports would later label this as aggressive electronic warfare, but for those floundering amid the wreckage, such terminology did little to assuage their fear and despair. What unforeseen force shattered their once unassailable technological superiority? In the heat of combat, reality had relentlessly transformed from strategic planning to a struggle for survival. As the clouds hung threateningly, would they recover from this nightmarish twist of fate?